So here again, there's multiple levels that you can receive this video on. There's what I'm saying and how you process that with your mind, what you think about what I'm saying. But there's all these other levels that you can receive the energy that we're engaging with here. So, however much you want to receive from this, let yourself have that. What if it is really safe and okay now for you to have what you've been asking for? What if it is safe and okay now for you to admit that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with anything? It is really easy for us to spend our entire lives thinking there's something wrong with us and looking everywhere for what's wrong with our life, for what we need to fix, for what we need to change. And it's not that you can't change things, but it is much easier to change things when you're not operating from a deficit, when you don't think there's something wrong that you need to fix. If it's just, wow, I appreciate the experience that I'm creating for myself right now. And what else can I create? Really letting yourself have the experience right now of knowing that absolutely nothing is wrong with you. Right now, in this moment, is there anything wrong? And right now, in this moment, what if you let yourself admit that this concept of wrong, of bad, of negative is just a concept? What if you let yourself really admit that the interpretation of things as wrong and bad and negative is all happening in your head? But how much do you let it dictate what you think your life can be? How much do you let it dictate your experience of your life? Do you think that there is something wrong with your body? Do you think that there is something wrong with what you look like? Do you think there's something wrong with your mind? Do you think there's something wrong with your personality? Do you just think there is something wrong with you that you can't even explain? And if you think any of those things, number one, can you admit that you're just thinking it? That's just thoughts. But could you really see what would happen if you would let yourself know that that's not true about you? And right now, go back to every person in your life who ever told you that there was anything wrong with you, that ever made you feel there was anything wrong with you. Get the energy of all of those people, whether it's a couple of people, whether it's a lot of people, whether it's just one person who was, for whatever reason, important enough to you that them telling you there's anything wrong with you or that there's anything wrong with anything and you believe them. Just Get the energy of that person. And this is going to sound strange, but thank that person, appreciate that person, release that person from being a villain in your story. But appreciate them on a couple of different levels. First, appreciate that they were not functioning from the truth. They were functioning from fear or anger. They weren't actually functioning from the truth. So appreciate that they may not in that moment have been capable of functioning from the truth. It is possible to go your entire life never seeing the truth. And we could feel sorry for those people who choose not to see the truth. We could feel sorry for ourselves that we have gone so long without being willing to see the truth, but you don't feel sorry because there's nothing wrong with pretending that you are less than what you are. There is nothing wrong with pretending that you're not infinite. There's nothing wrong with anything you have ever created, ever. So appreciate that however intensely that person delivered at you the idea that there's anything wrong with you. Appreciate that there was nothing wrong with them and that there was nothing wrong with you in that moment. It is very strange to do that. Runs counter to everything we think. We go, well, I don't want to forgive them. I don't want to make it all right that they did what they did. It isn't about that. It's about letting yourself be free of everything. Letting yourself admit that you are much more than you've ever let yourself think you are. If you are going through your life pretending not to be infinite, giving yourself the experience of, what if I thought I was so tiny and small? What if I thought there was anything to fear? What if I thought anything could be wrong with me? What if I thought anything could be wrong with anything? If you're doing that, why would you hold anybody else to the standard of not doing that? And when we start to reveal this to ourselves, I am infinite and I've been pretending to be incredibly limited. It can sometimes seem uncomfortable when other people are still choosing to pretend to be limited more than we are. But it's truthfully, it's everybody's creative expression. Everybody is choosing to express the life, the experience that they find valuable, unique, and interesting. So why look at what you are creating as wrong in any way? Why look at what anyone is creating as wrong in any way? And it's tempting because we've spent so much of our lives doing it. But what if right now You were willing to look at every moment anyone ever thought there was anything wrong with you, every moment you ever thought there was anything wrong with anyone else, every moment where the idea that anything was wrong with anything. What if you were to look at all of that and be willing to admit, I was pretending that this idea that anything can be wrong was real? And it is strange, but can you admit to yourself that at the time it might have made the game of life more interesting and more compelling to believe that you could get it wrong? Doesn't that release you from so much of what you think has been burdening you? If you really admit that it was, for the most part, illusory, and you were holding on to it to make a certain level of experience more vivid to you. And that now, or whenever you are ready, you can have the experience of there being nothing wrong with you, of there being nothing wrong with your body, of there being nothing wrong with the world, of there being nothing wrong with anyone or anything. You can have that experience right now. And you might go into this defense mechanism of, well, I need to be able to judge right and wrong. I'm going to need that at some point in the future. Okay. Well, since you have so much practice trying to follow what's right and wrong, and since you've got an endless supply of people who will tell you what they think is right and will tell you what they think is wrong, I think it's safe to say that you can always go back to that. But just for this moment, see what it would be like to have one moment where you really admit that, at least for right now, absolutely nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with your body. Nothing is wrong with anything you've ever chosen or created. Nothing is wrong in the world. Give yourself just a moment where no matter where you look, you will not see anything wrong with anything. And just entertain how your life might be different, how your experience of life might be different if you were to let yourself experience that moment where absolutely nothing is wrong with anything on an ongoing basis. And if you're a certain kind of person, you might go, well, wait, if I really think nothing's ever going to be wrong, I'm just going to lay on the couch and do nothing for the rest of my existence because there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe, but maybe not. What would it really be like if you would appreciate yourself enough to admit that nothing is wrong with you? What if you really would appreciate yourself enough to admit there is nothing wrong with the experience you have created for yourself up until right now? There is nothing wrong with the experience you're creating for yourself in this moment, and there's not going to be anything wrong with any experience you ever create for yourself. That is not to say you might not have experiences you desire to create more than other experiences. But you got to really ask yourself, if you have an experience you desire to create, and then you create something else, something unexpected or unintended, or something you didn't want to create, you think you didn't want to create, does thinking there's anything wrong with you make you better at creating your experience? Or does it send you down this path where you keep going, I'm not creating this at all. I'm just victim to it. I have nothing to do with any of it. This is just happening and it's horrible. And it's happening to me and it's horrible that it's happening to me and there's nothing I can do about it. Look at what your life might be like if for the rest of your life you thought everything is horrible, there's nothing I can do about it, and it's going to keep happening to me until it's over. Does that sound like a satisfying way to live your life? And if you've been there or you are there now, there's nothing wrong with you. I've been there. I've been there a lot. I was there for most of my life. And when I finally got some relief from feeling like everything was wrong and it was my fault and there was nothing I could do about it, it didn't even make any sense. But when I finally got some relief from feeling that way all the time, then when I would feel it again, it would be even worse because I go, wait a second, I know I don't have to feel this way, but I feel this way and it's horrible. And what's wrong with me that I feel this way, even though I know I don't have to feel this way? Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you at all. Nothing's wrong right now. Everything is okay. Right now, just feel whatever level of appreciation that you can for everything. Admit to yourself that you might appreciate things more than you think you do. Admit to yourself that there might be an untold number of things that if you were really willing to look, you really appreciate. What experiences do you appreciate? What if you could appreciate every experience? But, you know, if that's a tall order, what experiences have you created for yourself that you do appreciate? Even if it's just one. If you can only think of one, and even if it happened 100 years ago, at some point in your life, you must have created an experience for yourself that you appreciate. And when I was a younger person, if I was watching this and hearing what I'm saying, I would say, no, I've never in my life created anything that I appreciate. I've never had a single moment that I appreciate. That's really what I would have said when I was 19, 20 years old. If you really feel that way, there's still not anything wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. There's nothing wrong with thinking that. But what if you could have that experience right now of appreciating your life? It's really just a choice. See, we learn that really what we learn is approval. Do I approve of this or do I disapprove of this? Would other people approve of this or would they disapprove of this? We don't really, we are not nearly as encouraged to just appreciate, which doesn't necessarily have so much judgment attached to it. You can appreciate something even if it hurts. And that sounds very weird. But if you think there's anything wrong with you because you've had a life that seems to feel more painful than other people seem to feel, what if you really could appreciate that experience? And what if appreciating that experience would start to change it? If you feel miserable and you look at your experience and you go, this experience is making me feel miserable, and you keep just feeling miserable about it, there's nothing wrong with you if that's what you choose. There's nothing wrong with you if from moment one to the last moment you have, you just feel miserable the whole time. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that flies in the face of everything we are told, but there's really nothing wrong with that expression. You are still intrinsic to everything if that's what you're choosing. You are still a gift to the world if that's what you're choosing. I still appreciate that you're here. If you want to choose misery from the moment you were born until, because for a really long time I was choosing that. And I didn't have very many people that appreciated me when I was like that. I had a couple, and I'm really grateful. But I couldn't even feel that they appreciated me because I didn't appreciate myself enough to be able to see how anybody else could possibly appreciate me. Got to be willing to appreciate yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. People think it's arrogant, it's egotistical, that it's whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. What experience are you going to have? What are you really going to create as your life, but also out in the world? What are you really going to create if you don't appreciate yourself? A better world? And it's not up to you to create a better world because there's nothing wrong as is. How much would the world actually change if people were conscious and aware of the fact that there is nothing wrong as is? And if your mind wants to argue with that, it's okay. That's totally understandable because there's this whole list of things that you could point to and go, well, that's wrong. We need to change that. That's bad. But just ask yourself, has thinking that anything is wrong and bad gotten rid of it? Has it changed it? What if there's a different way to change the world? And what if that starts with you appreciating yourself, appreciating everything about the experience that you're having? Thank you guys so much again. This is so, so, so awesome. Bye bye.